All right, welcome to Knox Makers. This is Tuesday. Every Tuesday for 12 years now, we've had our show and share. That's where we show off projects that we're in the middle of or working on or succeeded in. We like to see it all. So we have a sign-up sheet for that, so we're going to get started with that. And first up is Tracy, who is going to show 3D stuff. Yeah.
Hopefully I can remember how to do this. You guys see that or not? Oh, sorry. Can you guys see that? Yes. I can make it a little bigger, I suppose, or plus. Hold it down. Nope. Okay. So, on the left is my Ender Pro, and on the right is my husband's Ender Pro version 2. So those are 3D printers, obviously, that we got a couple of years ago. And great thing about those is you can print your own parts, which my husband does when we need new parts for him, which is pretty awesome. What I was going to show you is what I do with the stuff I print, or what I try to do with the stuff I print anyway. So let's see. So I'll just show you this. This is how they print out, kind of flat. So that's the cephalopod. See, it just kind of prints flat like that, and then I take it and I usually get something like a round ball or something, and after I dip it into some fairly hot water for long enough for the plastic to melt, then I'll shape it so that it stands up kind of like this, and I get a shape I like a little bit better, if you can see that. See, it kind of curves. Can you see the difference? Can you guys see the difference? It's a little bit better. But this guy gets abused, my red one, because I'll try and different techniques on him for, like, I'll use my Dremel tool if I want to get some of, try and get a better shape, or a shape I like better. Or I'll use my hot iron and try and put little designs on there. But as you can see, it gets pretty stringy once it heats up. So that's a whole new cleanup mess that you have to do. Hold on a second. But I'm not sure if you can see him. A little better. So you can see what will happen if he's overheated when you're trying to manipulate the polymer. You'll get a little breaks like right here. But you can see he's got a break. What I can do is go back in with a 3D pen and try and fill that in and redo it that way. So that's good. Let's see what else. What else I can show you guys here. So that was, these are PLA, which is a little bit easier to work with. Oh, now they're tangled. So the PLA is a little bit easier to work with than the PET. PET is much harder, much more solid substance. These, you don't want to leave PLA out in, say, your hot car, because it'll just melt. Eventually, it'll degrade. It's biodegradable. The PET is not. That is quite a bit stronger. Let's see what else I can show you. Sorry about the bunny. Here's a skeleton head that I'm working on. Museum, there he is. So mostly what I'm working on now, since I've got a workroom full of things that are printed, is the different things I can use to paint him with. Acrylics, I use just regular acrylics for one effect. They're not my favorite. What's really, I also use an iron to kind of smooth out his surface if I want it smoothed out. Here's my favorite black, which is like a absolute black. But then I'll go over top of that with, say, clear glue to get a nice sort of wet, glossy look for the eyes, is what I like. Aleene's tacky glue, not so great for that. Gorilla Glue seems to be my favorite. It sets a little quicker, and it just has I have a better result with it. Oops, sorry. So here's an example. I'm not sure if you guys can really tell the difference. The queen that I did there is an example of using just regular acrylics. So you'll get that flat definition if you want to put details in, but my absolute favorite paints to use are the acrylic flow paints. They get, I just tend to like those. I like the effect they have. The reason why maybe you wouldn't like them if you were doing this is they will just literally flow. It's a really runny sort of a paint, and so it's, can you guys hear me? Sorry. So as you know, 3D printing, it prints in layers. So the paint will catch in all those layers. Depending on the thickness of the paint, you'll get a different effect. I like the acrylic flows. I like how it just kind of goes where it wants to go. That's fun to me. But if you didn't like that, I'd stick with regular acrylics. Cleanup is obviously something that you have to do before you get to that point. Lots and lots of cleanup with the supports of some of the things I print, especially, detailed things. Let's see if there's anything else I can show you. Well, I guess that was it for that. But I have a bunch of stuff printed out here that you guys can take a look at if you want. Some of my favorite things to print are the free source museum pieces that my mini factory does. Those are just my favorite because I'll never get to the museum to see this, wherever it was in the world, but I can print it out, and it's pretty awesome. So, also, articulation is fun to print. It's kind of like a slinky. So, that's all I really wanted to say. Is there any questions?
Yeah, is this a business?
No, it's just something that keeps me busy. But I am going to be at the market just because it's good for my anxiety to try and do things from time to time.
You must have a lot of stock.
I have a tremendous amount. I spent, it's good therapy. I spent the last 2 years filling a workroom, and now I really am so happy for this market because I'm hoping that I can at least get stuff out of the workroom. It's not the selling or the money, it's just moving it out of the workroom. So. Hi, Sue.
Hi, the little skull, is that Lego size?
Oh, no, he's an enormous, he's a big Lego. His head's about this big. I'll have him at the market. But you obviously, that was just his head. You didn't see his body. It's pretty fun. I can't remember how many pieces that was to print out and glue together, but maybe 16 pieces, I'm not sure. But they were pretty sizable pieces. It was actually my husband's print, that skeleton. That was one of his projects. But I get all the fun parts. I get to, I mean, there's obviously general things that general parameters within which I print. He's a lot more experimental than me, but we both have fun. Anything else, guys? Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you, Tracy. Next up is the doll doctor?
How about the doll doctor?
Doll doctor is what it says. Is that you?
Yes. Oh, did I forget to put my name on there? Oops. I guess I don't want you guys to know who the doll doctor is, right? And I'm jokingly calling myself that. My great-granddaughter brought me her doll. It was actually her mother's doll, and she has been loving it so much that it has become bald. You might also notice that she's got a little stubble on her legs there. Yeah, okay. So, Grammy, would you fix this for me, please? Oops, sorry, that's another project. So, had to make the hair, and I did several YouTube videos.
You're excessively zoom.
Oh. Is that better? Yes. Placement is everything. So I did a few YouTube videos to figure out how to do doll hair. And when you get a brand new skein of yarn, the inside is just crammed in there, so it's all kind of wadded up. Now, when I did the ponies for them, my cat had laid on the mane hair of the ponies and had crinkled it up. It was her heat. And that's fine because great-granddaughter's hair is very curly. But I didn't, because I wanted to braid this hair, I didn't want it really curly. So what I've done here is I've stretched it out over the ironing board and used steam. So it's like blocking. Amy was doing that this weekend or previously. Using steam from the iron and then just tap it, pat it down flat. You don't want to touch it with the iron because one, it could melt because it's not real fiber, not real art. Or you don't want to flatten the fibers either. So I got that done and then proceeded to putting the hair in to the doll. It's called a weft. So from what you saw on the ironing board, I then took paper and folded the paper in half over it and then took it to the sewing machine and sewed down the middle. That sews all those pieces of yarn together to make a weft, which is what you see here.
What's that word?
W-E-F-T, yes. Yeah, I hadn't heard it before either. But what I did find in pulling the paper out on this black hair, that she got a little dandruff. So I had to take tweezers to pull the little pieces of paper out. I got that taken care of. Then you pin it on, and you sew it, and you shape it. So what I ended up with was a repaired doll. Her legs are now shaved, so's her little apron, and she's got hair. So we'll go. Nope, that's the same face, believe it or not, yeah. So we have a repaired doll. I cannot wait to give it back to her to see what she has. And she starts going, me, with it again. But it's sewed very well. Should be another 2 years, and maybe she'll be outgrowing it. Any questions? Yes?
What was the stuff that was on her legs that kept it off?
Just like you have fleece or flannel, you get those little pills. Yeah, it was fabric pills. So, yeah, I just shaved it off. Yes? the before picture. Okay. She has one tuft here and then one tuft on each side. That's it, right? Yeah, bald. And what I tried to show on the hat, on the bonnet would come loose as well. So I had to attach the bonnet back down. Okay. Anybody else?
Hooray for the doll doctor.
Yay!
All right. Thank you, Sue. Next up, Adam is going to show us wedding stuff part 1.
I have to be overcomplicated always. So some of you know, some of you don't. Some of you don't have no idea who I am. But I went and did a thing this weekend. So yay, my new wife. My wife is sitting over here behind Billy. Stand up so I can publicly humiliate you for a second? Or do that. I guess that's good. So being a member of Knox Makers and a bit of an overachiever at times, I decided it would be fun to make as much of the stuff we could for the wedding as I could. I regret that immensely, but anyway, we got it done. So this is going to be, I guess, a multi-part series because they threatened to break my kneecaps if I went over 3 minutes. Not really, but... So the first thing I'm going to show off today is most of you who know who I am know that I tend to do pens. So for groomsmen's gifts for this wedding, I decided to make everybody a custom pen. But just hand turning, can I plug in? Okay, so just hand turning some wood wasn't enough for me, of course. So I undertook what is probably the most complicated maker project I've ever done. It wasn't enough for me to just hand turn some wood. I needed to have their names in it. And as soon as we get the buttons going, do you need light?
There's 3. Can we get some tech support?
Somebody call Geek Squad. Nerd Herd. I don't know.
Oh, wait. Nope. It's on 3.
It's because it's a Mac, isn't it? That's what it is.
Wait, there we go. If you have.
All right, cool. So, it wasn't enough for me just to hand off some turned wood. I need to actually put their names in it, which brought up the mental conversation, well, how do I do that? So I explored several options, and then I remembered that I have this really cool resin printer sitting on a table in my laundry room. So I drew up some designs for some 3D printed inlays. I came up with a system for not only building the inlay itself, but also centering the inlay and making it a part of the pen. So the way I've got this set up is I have that is the wrong spot. I have some parameters defined within this file where I can change the name, their position, the date, whatever. I can change the text parameters, and it will generate this extrusion for me. I can also come in and modify the actual parameters of the inlay itself, or the pen element itself, the pen element itself in order to define how long the pen blank is, what my expected diameter after turning is, and all of that. The effect of which is that I can predict what it will actually look like when I have printed it. So here is a preview of what that pen will look like when printed using a silver resin and then embedded in a blue acrylic. But the next problem with that was, well, how do I actually get that inlay properly centered in the pen? And I actually had to come up for a system for that as well. So I designed this mold cup. And that inlay, if we take a look at the bottom of it, is designed to interface with that mold cup. It's got a clipping system on the bottom. So when I print them out individually, when I print both of them in resin, I can take that inlay, clip it directly into the mold cup, and then flood the mold cup with the epoxy resin, and we get a pen. So I can actually come in here. Where is I have an element. Where is it? Is this it? That's it. So here's what it looks like with the inlay clipped into place. As part of this, I have cut lines marked off, and I have a drill point for labeling where the center is in it, as well as some lines that occur every 16th of an inch on this center support, so I can measure distances and know where the inlay ends, as well as ensure that it's properly centered within the mold cup. Yeah, so the effect of that is, here we go here. So here's a printed mold cup with the drill mark visible. This is one of the first prints I did, so I didn't have my supports down quite right, so there's a little bit of warping on it, but it was still usable. Here they are with the inlays stuck into the mold cups. And then here they are, you can see the light kind of catching the silvering of the resin, which is something I actually completely forgot to bring up a minute ago, is if you look for metallic 3D printer resin, as far as I can tell, it just doesn't exist. And I wanted a metallic sheen on these, so I experimented a lot with mixing pigmented mica powders into my 3D printer resin. Had some degrees of success, but actually I discovered that if I take some clear eco resin and a little like container of the silver pigment, and I dump the entire container of pigment in there and stir it for like 25 minutes, it comes out pretty good. So here's where they are with the inlays in place. I've got it degassed, poured into the mold, and ready to set. You can see the swirling of the Black Diamond Midnight Blue mica pigment is what I mixed in there. Some of you saw this sitting on the table for like a week, and that's because I thought it was going to take like 4 hours to set, but it took days, so hooray for that. And here is where disaster struck. When I was turning the very first one on the lathe, the thing exploded in my face, which broke my heart. There was a lot of cursing. I think I actually threw one of my expensive lathe tools, which you shouldn't do because that's dangerous and expensive. But at any rate, I was able to hunt down all of the little pieces and jigsaw puzzle them back together. I went ahead and finished this piece, even though I knew it wasn't going to be usable, and I did end up reprinting and repouring it. I was planning to bring this to show off today, but I couldn't find the stupid thing, so I'm thinking one of the kids stole it. But at any rate, here is what we finally ended up with. So we can see each of the pens. We have from the officiant to the best man, groomsman, and junior groomsman. Here's a zoom in on one. You can see them all up close. And then to show it off just a little bit better, I brought one. So I'm going to pass this around. This is my stepson's. I stole it while he's at his dad's house. Please don't break it. Don't drop it, but it'll be okay if everyone wants to take a look at it. If I have to remake it, I can. I'd really prefer not to, though. I also have a couple mold cup samples. These are early drafts of the mold cup. This one is resin printed. It was my first version with a different interface mechanism that didn't work at all. When I tried to clip the inlay into it, it just shattered in my hands. This is the second version, which is actually basically the final version, except I printed this on my filament printer. It came out kind of crappy, and then I also stepped on it, just because I'm clumsy like that. So I'm going to pass these around as well. But that is part one. Next part in the series, we'll be going over a cake topper my wife now and I made together.
How long did it take you to just design it, just to like get everything printed and like molded and then total?
Okay, so not counting actual curing time, where it was just sitting in a pot ignoring me, I'd say it's tough to say because a lot of time went into designing the mold cup and like the inlay clip interface. I'd say I started working on this project probably about a month and a half, 2 months ago. I actually finally got the last pen turned on Thursday. the wedding was on Saturday, so that was quite stressful. To be honest, most of my time, with the exception of time that went into the other two things I'm going to be showing, most of my time went into this project. So I'd say it's fair to call it a month of like actual after work and fighting and crying time.
How did you get those scrolling?
Are you talking about this here? Right here on the screen? So the way these work is the part I make is actually only this plastic part here. All of the metal hardware is a kit that you buy, and you can't see it because if you could see it, it would kind of defeat the purpose of it. But inside this plastic, there's a brass tube that's epoxied in place as well. So when you buy the hardware kit, it comes with all of the metal parts, the ink tube, the spring, the twist mechanism for taking the ink in and out, and that brass tube. So basically the way it works, and I've gotten approval to do this, I just haven't had time with the wedding. I will be doing a pen turning class eventually, so you'll be able to see the actual process. But basically we create a rectangular block that's got what's eventually going to be our pen material. We drill a hole down the center of a specific height that matches up with the brass tube. That tube attaches, then we clean it up and all, turn it and get it the way we want it, and then the hardware press fits in. So this just comes as a kit. This is the Wall Street 2 silver, chrome and satin something. It was a $15 kit at Woodcraft. I can't remember the name of it off the top of my head. Any other?
Will you be selling your designs at any point?
Um,
Mold interface?
I'm actually, like, in the spirit of Knox Makers, I'm just going to provide it for free. So once, yay! The inlay element itself, it's a Fusion 360, which is sadly not an open source project. Boo, womp womp. I don't know if I can export this design in a usable format, but the mold cup, I can absolutely release an STL of it for anybody who wants to use it. And in fact, I'm planning to. You got to provide your own supports depending on your printer, but it's not that big a deal. Anybody else? Cool. Don't worry about breaking them. I already stepped on them.
Congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
All right, that one will come up in a second. All right, next up is Lee, who's going to show a general purpose alarm device.
I'll probably need help with the technology here. Let's see, we'll lay this down. All right, and then I have just a few things to set up. Sorry for banging the microphone. Is the outlet strip hot? Oh, maybe I could talk. A little over a year ago, I somehow ran into, probably LinkedIn, connected me up with the Public Invention. Public Invention is a nonprofit that is trying to create things for the public good. And one thing that they have created that is quite impressive is a completely open source respiratory ventilator. I do see some notice of shock back there. And when I was contacted by them about a year ago, they're saying, well, we want to make an alarm device that will be like a tethered peripheral to the to the respiratory ventilator. And they called it the general purpose alarm device. And so probably starting about April or so of last year, began working on it. I did the printed circuit assembly, and another volunteer did the enclosure, and it's real. Now, what does it do? It makes some light and it makes some noise to get your attention when there is an alarm event for the respiratory ventilator, because a respiratory technician may need to intervene. There's 5 levels of alarm for varying degrees of urgency. And we shall demonstrate these marvelous alarms. Prepare to be overwhelmed. Yes. All right, come on. There we go. All right. So, goodness, honest, this one powered up. There we go. All right, I probably have a barrel jack that's the wrong size, and so making only intermittent connection. We'll swap them the other way and hope. All right, it's reassuring that the power indicators are on both. So on the left is actually the same device, but it has different firmware in it, and so what it does is it is going to issue alarms through the cable. And when I plug the cable in, alarms are being issued even as we speak. Why don't I push the reset button and that'll start this all over. All right, prepare to be overwhelmed. And if we listen carefully, the tone will change. The message is not actually changing. Can we see the message? Yeah, it's just the alphabet. And then the other feature is we have the mute button, because if you're the respiratory technician and you're dealing with the hose that's come loose or something like that, you want relief from that alarm while you're clearing the event, and then the alarm level goes down to display quiets and stuff like that. All right, and because I've muted it. So bottom line, this was a volunteer-developed project, entirely open source, and at the end of April, we took that respiratory ventilator and hooked one of these up to it for the first time when we went to a show called OSHWA, Open Source Hardware, something like that. And it was the afternoon before where Lawrence Kenneschol, I'm Lee Erickson, and goodness, Robert didn't put his name here, and Robert Reed, who is the president of Public Convention. We've been collaborating for a year. We met for the first time the day before the show. It was really cool. All right, that's all I have to say. I will entertain questions as I try to pack up this. There's.
Have you considered maybe talking to Spark upstairs about getting that up to them if they need it or something like that?
So I don't know who Spark Upstairs is. I sent my $20 check in and became a member after about 2 weeks ago, so I need to know all these things. I have attempted to contact the University of Minnesota's, no, this is Tennessee we live in now. The university, you can tell I grew up in Minnesota, the University of Tennessee's medical school to say, we have a respiratory ventilator that could be useful to train doctors and respiratory technicians, things like that, as well as there is a school that designs medical equipment, and I've left voicemails and no one's gotten back to me in about a week or so. All right, that hand is up.
So is this for somebody who's being intubated?
Yes. Yeah. It was a real urgent thing about 2.5, 3 years ago. But when the immediacy of the need went away, they didn't stop working on it. And in fact, what they have developed is a device that's far superior to many things that were approved under emergency use authorizations or something like that. When early in the pandemic, I myself had tried to research and say, all right, is there any little piece of a ventilator that I could be building or my employer could be building? And very quickly, no one was trying to share information. It was all proprietary. So here it was, about 2 years later, I stumbled into a group who'd followed through and has made something. I think there was a hand up over here.
I was just going to say, Spark is literally upstairs. Right there, right? They're a Knoxville charity that deals in durable medical equipment.
Well, tell me afterwards, all right.
What processor and what language?
Oh, great. It's cool, but I'm gonna have to cough.
So it does the magic for you. You can adjust it if you want. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to make this work, but it helps. I'm not. Oh, I can send one of these around. Got it. This is ours.
All right. Next up is Russell, who has a really nifty device to hold your place in a book or inform the public. Not a lamp?
Is it paper?
You know it's a lamp. I see some people have already figured it out. This is a trick because I fired up the old Inkscape, came up with a simple bookmark design, got some colorful cardstock, and lo and behold, we ended up with this. Now, yay! If you'll notice, there are a lot of these laying around, and when we leave, I hope that none of them will be left. It will be in people's purses, pockets, shoes, whatever, and that you will take this and share it with one of your friends, family, enemies, or whatever, so they will come to the market on Sunday. Volunteers will be here around 9 o'clock. Does that sound about right? So show up and help out. Now, I know that Billy would be, he would be disappointed if I really didn't show a lamp. And since this is, in fact, a bookmark, I figured that if you cut out the spot where the where that code is and put a light behind it, you have a reading lamp. So, bookmark, reading lamp, it all works. Please tell people about Sunday. Be here, and we really do appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Next up, Paul's going to show off a name badge. You already know it.
Tracy told me I had to share, so I'm sharing. Hey, did you know we're having a makers market this Sunday? There's going to be 45 vendors, and there's going to be volunteers. How do you know who's a volunteer? I have name badges. Well, I offered to make personalized name badges for anybody that wanted one. Hi, I'm Joe. I had a few takers. And as we all know, we don't do these things because they are easy. We did them because we thought they were going to be easy. I bought some of this 2-color acrylic. It's supposed to be black on the top and white underneath. So when you start blasting it with a laser, it lets the white come through. Turned out it was not acrylic, it was ABS. So I definitely did not use the laser to not laser this stuff, and it did not stink and turn out like dog do. So I threw that away. And I ordered some acrylic that was also not acrylic from another place. And it also turned out like dog do, a little bit less like the first dog do. So finally I just said, screw it, and got the old-fashioned solid hunk of black acrylic and just lasered it. And then I took some paint, and I squirted the paint on there and took a credit card and squeegeed it on off. And then kind of sanded the high spots down with some 600 grit sandpaper. And it looks a little bit out of focus here, but a little bit better in person because of the resolution, but you can see they're kind of like hatched. Anyway, so Name badges. Woo. If you volunteer, you don't get one of these unless you asked for one. Maybe next time, so volunteer. I'll provide the files if anybody wants it. It's just a thing, so. That is all.
All right, last up on the list is David with a ring.
Howdy. It's a ring. It's very small. Let's see. Zoom. Zoom. It is just a wooden ring. And I've got some pictures of the process of it. These are just strips of wood from the scrap wood pile. Those of you who know me know I operate mostly only out of the scrap wood pile. What I did is I took a very thin piece of wood. You could do this with just veneer that you buy at the store, and then cut it into a strip, wet it, put it around like a socket, and tape it down so that it dries with that curve in it, the twist in it. And then the next time after it all is dry, you wrap it around the socket, but this time you put super glue on it, which then ties it all together. So that's what the different stages are. There's the original twist, and then the different super glued steps. Let's see. Yeah. And then there's just a couple rings I did that after you get it super glued, then you stick it on the lathe and turn it. So it's pretty simple, but it looks pretty cool. And I've made a couple of these, and so I've got one. I'll pass it around. You see, this one's all cracked up. That one is interesting. Different super glue, depending on how thick you put it on there, may crack. There's a particular brand that is known for that, and so you just avoid that. But the super glue, it would be the pin turner, Adam. That would be a common thing that you do on pins as well. So it's not an unusual thing. And then I just polished it with a buffing wheel. Yes.
So what is the inlay on
The inlay, my wife says I'm supposed to tell everybody it's garnet, like crushed garnet, like real stones and stuff. It's just glitter. So I put super glue in there, drop some glitter in, and then it builds up, and then you turn it down on the lathe, and then put more super glue on there so it coats it and covers it. Yes.
What do you use for a mandrel on the lathe?
A piece of a stick. So I just took a stick and turned it down so that I could slip the ring on there. And then I took a piece of silicone and wrapped around the stick so that then when I put the ring on there and then put all that super glue on there, I could get the silicone, or I could get the ring off of there.
And then for your CA finish on that, are you doing that in a single layer? Or?
No, I did several layers of it to build it up.
So I found when I'm doing multi-layer CA finish, if you do like 2 or 3 layers of a really, really thin CA, hit it with a spray
Activator.
and then go back with 4 or 5 layers of the medium, you don't get that cracking.
Okay,